Christianity was never supposed to be a religion that existed. Why? Because in the Old Testament and the New Testament, to be called an Israelite was highly significant of being a child of the Most High. The law, statutes, and commandments was given to the Israelites. So even if you were a Gentile and you were grafted in, you were not called Christian. No, that didn't exist back then until the New Testament, when they were first called Christians in the Church of Antioch and all of that. So to be an Israelite is to be grafted into the household of the Father. And to be called Israel, you bear the name of the Father in the name of the promise that was given to Jacob by way of the Father. A prince who has power with God, that is what it means to be an Israelite. So Christianity was never supposed to exist. Not only that, but to be called a Christian was a derogatory term that was used and given to those who opposed the king back in Christ's time. The disciples not only were preaching the gospel that sets you free from sin, but they were preaching a gospel that was setting the captives free, not only mentally, but physically. There was people that were under the rulership of kings that were doing them wrong, and they came preaching a gospel that gave them life, gave them a new understanding what it means to be free. Believe it or not, the gospel that was preached back in the biblical times actually went against the rulership of the governments, went against the rulership of kings and powers that be that wasn't in the bed with the church. So that being said, to be called a Christian is a badge of honor for the kingdom, not because we were supposed to be called that, but it showed ourselves approved that we were following Christ, that we were setting people free from the mindset and the rulership of the Greeks and the Gentiles. Let's just include all nations, the Gentiles. We were being set free from that way of thinking and being grafted into the way of the Father, the way of the Israelites. Even Paul said, count it to yourself glory that you are being persecuted for our Father's name's sake. So it wasn't that the name of the Father was Christian. It was that these people represented the Father and were pushing the gospel, rebelling against the kingship of the Gentiles, and they were being called Christians and being persecuted heavily. So what is the Christian religion really? Nowadays, we see that the church is in the bed with the government and they work hand in hand. You don't see the church speaking out against the governments and they might say principalities. We speak out against the enemy, the principalities. The church doesn't realize that there's a physical enemy, and that's the church of today. There's a physical enemy that is keeping our people captive, not just mentally, but physically. We're celebrating Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving and birthdays and all of this stuff that is against the Father. Now, if you are to be a Christian, which is a person, not named a person by the Father, but named Christian by people, to be a Christian means that you are rebellious and set apart from the way of the world. But more so than being called a Christian, I would rather you be called an Israelite, because within the family of the Israelites, you have the law, statutes, and commandments that is not done away with. Yes, Christ came and fulfilled it, but he said, if you love me, you will keep my laws, statutes, and commandments. So in the Israelite family, you are commanded to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. However, in Christianity, you are not commanded to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. And I would even go as far as to say that 9 times out of 10, you will hear more Christians say that the laws are done away with and they don't have to subscribe to the law of Moses, what they call the law of Moses, but it's actually the law of the Father, and the spirit of the Father is in his law. I hope this message lifts your spirit and does not turn you away. I know that there's going to be a lot of people who do not receive this message, and I understand. I know that's going to come. I know a lot of y'all probably already swiped away now, but for those of you who stayed, like, comment, subscribe. Let's discuss. Let's talk about this. Let's push this message forward, because our children need this. We no longer need to raise children up in the darkness. Our family needs this. Even if they don't want to hear it, let's spread this good news and keep it moving. If they don't receive it, keep it moving. Shake the dust off your feet and go on to the next people. God is sending us people daily. Let's push this word, keep the faith, keep the law, statutes, and commandments, and hey, you got it, man. It's simple as that. But I love you guys. Like I said, if y'all like these videos, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk more about this in the future. The law of God is the Spirit of God given to the Israelites that even angels have to abide by in some form or fashion. The Son of God given to the Jews, the Israelite people, is that law revealed, is the Spirit of God revealed, the characteristics of the Father that once was a mystery, now revealed through his Son, who we call Christ, the Messiah. So please know and understand that the law is very much still serving a purpose, and serving its purpose, it is still very much intact. It is not done away with. We now can live in the law with faith in Christ, knowing that if, not when, but if we transgress that law, we have an advocate. We have Christ who is pleading on our behalf, praying to the Father and forgiving us that 7 times 77. So anybody who teaches you that we don't have to keep the law, they're lying, and they do not have the fear of God in them. Also, anybody who teaches the law only and does not have the faith in Christ is condemned already, because they did not believe in him who he sent to us so that we can have everlasting life, because we've all transgressed the law. Real Christians are not in Christianity. No, real Christians follow Christ without contradiction. They do not go against the words and commands of the Father. None of that. Real Christians hold fast to the law, statutes, and commandments while having faith in Christ. They do not hold fast to what the modern day Christian church is teaching with celebrating Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, all these pagan holidays. Hear me when I say, real Christians, they know who the Father is, they fear God, and they hold fast to the faith in Christ and law, statutes, and commandments. The law of circumcision of the flesh no longer applies to us as followers of Christ. However, circumcision of the heart does apply. All of the laws in the prophets of old hang on these two commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second commandment is just like the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. When you do these two commandments, know that you are keeping the law of God. So be fruitful and multiply with this knowledge in mind and in your actions. This is the only way to worship God in spirit and truth. If you do not know, I'm about to help you out right now. It's easy. Keep God's law, statutes, and commandments. And that is the essence of what it means to be a child of the Most High. Set apart, holy, different from the world. It's all in his law, statutes, and commandments that he gave to his chosen people. So if that's you, make sure you are keeping his law, statutes, and commandments, which is in the Bible. It's not just the 10 commandments. It's other stuff like dietary laws, how to dress, how to conduct yourself in the presence of people, not just your neighbor, but in the presence of the world, you know. So it's in his law, statutes, and commandments. This is simple. While having faith in Christ, who gives us the strength to walk out these laws, statutes, and commandments, by his grace and mercy on us, we're able to walk out the law, statutes, and commandments that if, not when, but if we transgress the law, we have an advocate that's forgiven us 7 times 77. Peace and love, my Hebrew brothers and sisters and everybody else. Now, I got a question. Tell me if the church is teaching y'all this. If the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is truly for the whole world, like Christianity teaches, like the church teaches, why is it the Father said to the serpent, my seed will crush the head of your seed? Now, some of y'all might think, oh, he's talking spiritually. Okay, cool. But why is it the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, key words, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, why did he choose a specific people to give his love to give his 10 commandments to? Think about it. Think about it. So if there's a physical people that God chose, you know there's a physical people that the enemy chose. Humbling proof that we were all born in sin. I got it for you today. Hold on real quick.
What the hell?
Congratulations, you've been humbled by truebrewtv. Now go fix your life, child of God.